Hi there, John Moore here, and I am a shamanic teacher and practitioner. I live in the state of Maine in the northeast of the US. And today I want to talk to you about shamanic illness and what shamanic illness is. And I want to lead this out with, a disclaimer that please don't diagnose yourself with shamanic illness from listening to this video or any other video. If you are having health issues, seek out medical attention. And I'll talk about that a little bit as well. But even in shamanic illness, there can be organic, physical reasons, physical things that should be seen to by a doctor. And don't forego medicine for spiritual healing. They work, in my belief, they work in conjunction with each other. So, what is shamanic illness? Well, this is an idea that's rooted in many different shamanic cultures, that an individual who is going through a spirit-initiated spiritual initiation, in other words, spirit decides that this person is meant to become a shaman. That person will get very ill, and that illness can take a number of different forms. It can include physical disturbances, psychological disturbances, visions, all kinds of things. This is why it's really important to get yourself checked out. Sometimes people who have come to me with shamanic illness, not that I'm not diagnosing anybody, but an illness that I would conceive of as shamanic, it's something that medical science is unable to diagnose. So they put, this is psychogenic or something like that, right? It derives out of the psychology. So the concept in shamanism is spirit wants to break you down and rebuild you, and needs to change up your spiritual makeup a bit. And that can happen rather rapidly, and sometimes can even involve life-threatening illness. Part of shamanism is this impulse to awaken spiritually that happens as the result of crisis. And shamanic illness is one kind of crisis that can bring people to a spiritual awakening. In my own life, I was going through a period of where I had been diagnosed with PTSD. I had severe depression. I had my adrenal glands were practically burned out. I had lost something like 60 pounds in a really short period of time, and I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep. And they kind of diagnosed me with a host of things that didn't seem to be particularly organic. Although PTSD, I think, has lots of components to it. Has physical components and spiritual, mental. Now, shamanic views on illness tend to be holistic, meaning that the mind, body, and spirit are not really separate things the way we might think they are, but they're all interwoven and they all interact with each other, which is why a massive disturbance in the spirit coming from an initiatory process can result in physical illness. Physical illness can affect the mind and the spirit as well. So, there's a continuum, and rarely are those things, rarely can you say there's just, there is alone a physical reason for this illness, or a psychological reason for this illness, or a spiritual reason for this illness. There's often lots and lots of overlap. So in shamanic illness, there is transformation on the other side. It's usually like a dawning or an awakening moment or something like that. Does shamanic illness, is an important question, does shamanic illness go away? Does it get better? Sometimes. Sometimes it's alleviated completely. Sometimes there are remnants of whatever the problem was. I live in the northeast of the United States, as does my cat Phoebe, who likes to get involved in all my videos. Say hello, Phoebe. she, but I know lots of shamanic practitioners in this area who have chronic Lyme disease, which is can be life-threatening, vastly debilitating, hugely misdiagnosed. Right, I know people who went through years of misdiagnosis, and then by the time it gets to the chronic stage, is very, very difficult to treat medically. Not impossible, but it can be very difficult to treat medically. If you don't, if you catch Lyme disease up front, you can treat it with some simple antibiotics. But once it gets hold in your system, and it can come along with some co-infections as well, it can wreak havoc and be really debilitating. And I've known people who've had near-death experience, who wound up becoming shamanic healers, who had near-death experiences from chronic Lyme, because of the all kinds of effects that go on. Anyway, and I would consider that a shamanic illness, even though there was an actual physical cause to the illness. The timing of it and the way that it forces you to transform your life, and changes things and shakes things up in a way that is basically a crisis, makes it shamanic, makes it spiritual. Now, everything has a spiritual component to it in the shamanic view. Shamanism comes out of animism. Animism is the belief that everything has a spirit, or everything is a spirit. So even diseases like that are caused by bacteria, or some kind of other types of infections, virus, that sort of thing, that bacteria, that virus has a spiritual component to it. The timing of getting sick can have a spiritual component to it. The way that it affects you psychologically can have a component to it. How do you know if something is a shamanic illness? Well, really, you need to first of all get treated medically. Make sure everything is taken care of that can be taken care of organically. Like I said, sometimes shamanic illness isn't diagnosed or is misdiagnosed, or the doctors will chalk it up. They'll call it psychogenic, meaning coming from the mind. It's all in your head. Right, and that seems really pejorative. Like, for people who are diagnosed with psychogenic conditions, like, that can seem like they're telling you your illness isn't real. And I think that that can be really damaging to people, to feel that way. But B, people shouldn't feel that way, because the mind is real. The mind is where we experience everything. The mind is all there is. Consciousness is all there is. So, if something's arising out of processes of the mind and spirit, it's still real. It's just that they don't have an organic, physical way of defining what's going on with you, and they could be very wrong. Like, I've known people who are diagnosed with psychogenic illness that later on find out they had some kind of infection that was not easy to diagnose. So get checked out medically. Then, while that's going on, while you are receiving medical treatment, medical diagnosis, medical, therapy, whatever it is, whatever treatment you're getting, go see a shaman, see a shamanic healer or practitioner, and have them look at the illness from a shamanic perspective. Have them journey for you and look at that illness and see what's going on and consult with them. Some shamanic practitioners who study core shamanism, for example, may not be well versed in shamanic illness because they didn't come out of cultures that is a thing, and that's okay. But you can ask about it. You can ask, do you think this is shamanic illness? And they should be able to determine if there's a spiritual origin or a spiritual contributor to your illness. And then sometimes you can't know in the middle of it. Sometimes it's not until you start to come out of it, or you do come out of it, that you realize you have been transformed by the illness and have had spiritual awakenings and visions. If you're having visions and things like that during an illness, they might say it's a psychotic break or something like that. Again, treat the organic. But understand that you may be perceiving spiritual realities other than this one. You might be, the way that it's affecting your perception and your consciousness might be getting you ready to be able to journey into the other world. So that is shamanic illness in a nutshell. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you very, very soon.